Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Charity Majors, and today we have a special guest who, if you've ever met one of those girls who you are just like, you are my people, this woman definitely is. We had the opportunity of connecting through another really incredible online community, Powerhouse Women, with Lindsay Schwartz, and we just became each other's biggest fans, biggest cheerleaders from the moment that we met online to then like hugging each other in person at a live event. And Emily, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share you and your journey and your story and what you are doing, especially for moms, with our audience and with our community. So welcome.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you even said all that because honestly, you that's how I would describe you if I was hosting the podcast. And I'm like, oh, like I was literally getting chills and I almost started crying. So I'm like, oh, that would have been her intro. So clearly we felt the same way. We just never communicated it until this podcast. So it's great.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to read your bio here just so that everyone can know not only how amazing you are on paper, but I'm excited for people to kind of get below the surface and get to know you a little bit more. But Dr. Emily Jacobs, she is a wife, she's a girl mom, she's an author, a keynote speaker, a former 20 plus year doctorate level nurse turned leadership and empowerment coach, and she's the founder of Empowered Moms. She is also a proud faculty member at the Integrative Nurse Coach Academy, as well as a healthcare coach and consultant. After publishing her first book in 2023, Live Your Life for You, Not Your Mom, Emily realized that she was not alone in creating a life she loved, despite what anyone thinks. Her company, Empowered Moms, is a community where they raise the bar for moms who know they are worthy of more, to overcome fear and guilt, to pursue their big dreams, and to live a life they love beyond motherhood through high-level coaching, collaborations, and most importantly, community. Because dreams don't have to end at motherhood. Oh, I just love that. So, Emily, looking back, right? So, we heard all of the amazing things about you and what you're doing. So, looking back, kind of at this, I know that we all have these moments in our journey where it's like, ooh, okay, I wish I could have gone back and told myself this. Like, take us back to that moment and a little bit back into your story.
Oh yeah, this is a tough one and a good one. I'm getting like chills all day. This is going to be crazy. So what comes to mind first is like thinking back to my childhood is two things which are a little generic, but I want to go into it. One is the follow your heart, because your heart and your intuition and the beliefs that you have is truly what you're meant to do and what you're supposed to do, despite what anybody thinks, because no one can change that feeling. No one can dim that. Well, people can dim your light if you let them. And when I go back and almost think about the things I wish I knew or what I would tell my younger self is, I want to almost say like you were right, but I want to explain that. Um, but the truth is, and I want to explain that too, but the big one I want to talk about is that you can't change anybody.
Yeah.
And I wish I could understand that concept as a kid, and it's not your job to make anyone happy. So those two things kind of go together because, and this is not my mom's fault. And in my book, I talk about, I don't blame my mom for my past. Like we had a great past. It's just we were so different and we thought differently and we acted differently and we spoke differently. And that was really hard for her. But
Mm.
it wasn't for me. It's like that was my mom. I loved her no matter what. I didn't need us to be like best friends and be the same person. For her, that was really hard for her. And she kept trying to change me to mold into her and vice versa. For
Mm.
decades of like my early adulthood, I was trying to literally convince, change, get my mom to be something different, be someone different. And I thought to myself, man, like now that I'm older, I'm just like, I can't believe I spent that many years trying to get someone to be someone they're not
Yeah.
just because I wanted her to be different. And that's not even fair. So honestly, those are kind of I know I just gave you like five things, but the big one is really even for adults now, even when I was younger, I almost wished I knew that so that I wouldn't have put so much effort in and really learning how to accept people just the way they are, even if you don't love every aspect of them, even if it's your mom. Now, some moms are amazing. Like some moms, it's like that's your ideal role model mom. Like I'm still striving to be that for my kids, which is really hard because I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But I think that it's really important to know that knowing that acceptance early on and knowing that like I am who I am. I don't have to dim my light, even if it feels like I might have to be something different for my parents. And I coach people even today still in this age group on that. And they're like, I feel like I'm still trying to make my mom happy. And I'm like, well, did you realize that's a you problem, not a them problem? Like it's you trying to still make your mom happy in your 40s and 50s. And I could go on and on about that. But essentially, I mean, it costs us a lot when we are in deep people pleasing tendencies. And I know there's a lot of listeners out there that are people pleasers. And I think that there's a lot of us know that it's not like there's something wrong with us. We just have to recognize when we've given past when it's starting to cost us our own peace and our own sanity. Like we have to learn that balance of, wait, I'm people pleasing a little too much right now, and I need to pull that back.
Yeah, I love that. So how do you think people pleasing shows up? Because I know for me, I definitely dealt with people pleasing in my past, and it was oh, well, maybe if I like pretend I'm like that girl, people will like me, or if I show up in this way, people will accept me, or whatever that might mean. And it ended up, for me, I used to have a lot of different masks, and I lost who I was, and I didn't even know the things that I liked. And for me, I ended up going what I joke as almost like this Pretty Woman moment. If you've ever seen the movie, she's like, I don't even know what eggs that I like, because I have just been like just people pleasing all over the place. And so I had to go through this almost this unbecoming of what everyone else thought I should be, or all of the masks that I put. And I really had to figure out who I was and the gifts that I had been given, and to pursue those. So for you, like, what was it like in those people pleasing tendencies? How do you find that even with the people that you work with, that those show up, in case there is someone that's listening and they're like, oh, okay, I'm raising my internal hand right now, and I'm like, okay, you're calling me out in the best way, but that's a good thing, right? Because we don't, until we know better, we can't do better. And
Yeah.
I would love to hear just how that shows up in our lives.
I think first and foremost, a lot of us do care what other people think. I mean, like if we really are being honest with ourselves, we do. I for sure
For
do.
sure, for
There's things
sure.
I do. Like I care what will you think of me. Like if I'm coaching someone, I care that you think I'm a good coach. Heck yeah, I do. And
Yes.
if it's also not in the right alignment, like I'm doing the best I can and it's not working with this person, then there is a way to let go and find another person for them, right? But I think at the end of the day, like number one, we want to be liked, even if it's hard to admit that. So, however, one thing I want to say with people pleasing is, but not everyone is going to like you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be the most likable, lovable person on the planet, and somebody will still not like you. So I want to just like, I know that might be harsh, but it's probably out there. There's somebody out there that might not like you, and and I know it's like so simple to say, just be okay with it, because it's not that simple, but it's okay. You're not for everybody. Your light that's shining bright is not meant to be with everybody. And I think too, with people pleasing, when that shows up for me is it's hard when I find out that like somebody, maybe I'm still teaching classes and I do this at, healthcare facilities or, in the programs that I'm teaching. And if I get like one bad evaluation, right? One out of 10 each time, or 20, I'm like, usually one, I don't care as much. But if it's two, I'm like, oh my God, for real? Like for real? They didn't like something. And then I think to myself, that's not fair, because number one, you don't know the whole story. And
Mm-hmm.
who knows where it's coming from. So taking things personally that don't have to be taken personally is like another thing I like to help people pleasers with, is what part of that could we let go of, that it wasn't personal?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people too have, especially in healthcare, like have deep loyalty, but what they're learning is that I'm trying to stay professional with that too. What I'm trying to teach them is to have loyalty to yourself first. It
Yeah.
sounds selfish, and people pleasers have a hard time with doing anything that looks selfish, even so much as like self-care, right? Which I have to do that because the people that I'm around a lot, we have a hard time with self-care. Like I was a nurse for a long time. We have a hard time because we take care of people. We don't really take care of ourselves very well. Well, at least I used to be like that. And, when you even think about self-care, you'll start neglecting your self-care, quote, like taking care of yourself. You're going to start neglecting that if you're over people pleasing. So one of the biggest things with that is before you're like committing to somebody, right? Or trying to make someone happy, which again, nothing wrong with that, unless you've reached like your limit in that day or in that moment, because it will always cost you somewhere else. Saying yes over here, you've heard this probably from mentors, saying yes to one thing is a no to another thing.
Right.
Well, it's same thing with people pleasing. Like, well, I'm trying to make you happy. I'm going to like, there's something on the other side that you're going to let go of. So is it making me happy? Is it my kids? Is it my job? Like who suffers? Maybe suffers is too strong, but where is it going to cost me if I'm always, feeding into that? And for me as a kid, it cost me my confidence. It cost me my security, always trying to do things to make someone happy. I mean, who knows? All the listeners out there that had the moms that were like, just curl your hair, just wear this and it'll make me happy today. All the things, right? I would do that and it didn't work.
Right.
Like it made her happy for a split second. And then the rest of the day, I'm like, what happened? So again, remember that the people pleasing, if you're doing it from your heart because you love to do it, then try not to think about what's on that other side and try not to overgive if you're already reaching your limit.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love the point that you brought up about the um that we feel like it's wrong to like oh my gosh, I'm like totally forgetting it right now. I'm gonna have to edit this part out because I totally went blank. I'll tell my assistant to edit this part out. Okay, the part where okay, got it. The part where it was oh my gosh, maybe I'm not supposed to bring that every time I remember it and then it's gone again as soon as it's supposed to come out of my mouth.
Are you talking about just like overgiving? Like
No, where it's not a bad thing for us
yeah.
to like want to please people. Okay, got it. Okay. I love what you brought up about the point where it's not a bad thing for us to want to please people, because I actually feel like that addresses the soul need and the human need that we have in our humanness for human connection. And that connection is real and it's there and it's needed, right? You run a community, I run a community. Of course, we want our people to like be loved and to feel supported and to and so there can be that, oh hey, like I totally recognize that when you feel loved and seen, it's because we do this. And so it's not to like evoke certain things or to change them or to make them feel like they belong. But I love what you said, that there is that point, there is like that a little bit of that pleasing or honoring someone or complimenting them or like drawing out the gold in them and those type of things, that's not necessarily people pleasing compared to just loving who is in front of you and loving them well. And obviously wanting people like to do that in return for you. I love, like we all want to be honored, we all want to be respected, we all want to be seen and heard and known, and those are deep soul needs that we have when it comes to community. And so I love what you said, where it's not a bad thing to want the like or to have some of the pleasing. We just have to know, okay, what does that gauge look like for us, and what's that limit, and where does it go over the line of me changing who I be or changing who I am in order to earn someone else's approval, or in order to like perform for someone else to see me, and like I'm jumping up and down and I'm trying to like be seen and all this different stuff that can happen, right?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's like at a point, it's when it starts costing you, right? And you said you kind of hit the nail on that. I mean, I love I mean, I love bringing joy. Like I love making things happy. Like I
Totally.
was a fixer for a long time in the hospital. Like I was like, okay, you have this problem. I'm going to help you fix it. Right. This is what I am. And I think what I'm learning now is in being in the coaching world is my job is to help the person. I don't want to say fix because that was a little different, but help empower them to move
Yeah.
forward by either giving them tools, but again, remembering that it's not about me. If you choose me as a mentor, I'm going to help you find that clarity and find that the ways to move forward. I can give you some advice, but again, same thing with people pleasing. It's like what works for one person doesn't work for another.
Right.
And that's the other thing I was kind of, what I grew up with it's not a mom bashing story, but it's kind of my background is that in there's a lot of the women that I'm coaching too is my mom would say things like it's basically like her way or the highway. Like there's only one way to do it and it's the right way. And even as a young kid, I'm like, I knew that wasn't true. And so to not be modeling that and to say, well, I kind of think there's multiple different ways to tie a shoe, and I'll prove it to you.
Yeah.
And why does that way have to only be the right way? I mean, that's not one of the arguments. It's not worth going into some of them, but the truth is, I'm like, what I find is that when people are in that kind of controlling, manipulative type of mindset, which a lot of that generation had a hard time dealing with their feelings and emotions. I'm going on a tangent for sure now on this, but they were kind of taught, and they general, I don't have like research to back this up besides stories. They weren't really taught how to deal with this stuff. And they were taught to pull back the emotions and don't talk about that. And so our generations, in whatever age group we're in right now, even people younger than us, we're still healing from some of that because we are a little more open with our emotions and coming out. So that was even like a conflict with my mom and I, is that I wanted to talk through something.
Mhm.
It was like, this is the end of that. We're not talking through this. And I'm right, you're wrong type of thing. So we still had a good relationship for the most part, but I think that when you tried so hard for so many decades and realizing that this is not the healthiest way of moving forward, you're right. You start gaining and seeking approval from other things. You start overworking at your job to impress your manager to get the next raise when you just needed to do a good job. And then you start burning yourself out into a point of like, people don't even know how to get out of that burnout because and I don't know if we caught that, but I'm basing on like, you put yourself there. You put yourself into the front of the burnout. No one did that to you. So that's a good thing. You put yourself there, which means you can get yourself out. And that's it's almost like that vicious cycle when people pleasing starts costing you. And then you go down that drink, you don't know how to get back out. One of the biggest pieces of awareness is recognizing that, well, unfortunately, it hurts to hear it, but if you got yourself there, you can definitely get yourself out.
Yeah.
And it starts with recognizing, where did I overgive of myself that I need to start just like inching that back? It's like, you just get the little rope and start, okay, how do I feed myself? How do I help myself get out of this hole, or reach out, or who's going to help me? But I think that can help when people pleasing is starting to cost you your own, well, it starts adding to your own self-sabotage. Then you're choosing to hurt yourself over and over again, and then making that an excuse. So yeah, I mean, obviously I had lots of like tangents and stories around it, but I think you're right. It's finding, I don't love the word balance. We all like, it's so hard to like juggle that, but I think it's finding that, okay, I love to give and serve, and I love making people happy, and I love bringing joy. Well, where am I right now? How am I doing? Like, if I'm not doing so well, then why am I still pouring into that? I need to step back for a minute, or a week, or a day, or I don't know what it looks like, or just even lessen the load before I can start moving forward more.
Right. And so I would assume it sounds like boundaries are super, super helpful in that situation. So maybe someone listening, they're finding, oh gosh, I am saying yes to all the things. I am hitting the burnout place. I am overwhelmed. I'm doing all the things to try and people please and to try and earn the whatever I'm feeling like I need to earn and people please. And so, how have you learned that boundaries help with this?
Yeah, there's a phenomenal book, and I'll just show it on the screen because I don't even know what year it is. I literally need to email these guys because I talk about them every single day. and they have no clue. But oh, I don't have like the best. This is what it looks like. It's called Boundaries.
Yeah.
I think my brother sent me this book in my like late 20s, early 30s, let's say. And when I say it changed my life, like it started to make changes for me, right? Because I started implementing it. But one of my favorite chapters in there was talked about what it looks like to have a boundary-less life. And I was like, a boundary-less life. Like I was like, boundaries, yeah, I totally get that. Like when to say yes, when to say no, like, right? These are boundaries. It was so fascinating that when I read that chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. Like, I have a boundaryless life. I have a boundaryless relationship with my mom. I feel so intimidated to tell her that, like, this is not okay. So
Mhm.
I made up this definition. It's probably in there somewhere, or somebody else did too. But all it is, and when I think about a boundary, is what's okay and what's not okay. That's my definition. And then
Mhm.
when you think about your next yes or your next choice for something, is checking in with your limit. So the word boundaries and limit is the same word to me. And what that does is if you can communicate that limit or that boundary, maybe boundary is too harsh of a word, but if you can communicate that limit, what you've just done to your soul is self-respect and self-love just by communicating it. Hey,
Right.
you know what? Whew, my plate's really full right now.
Yeah.
Can you circle back to me next week? Maybe next week will be better. I literally just said no without saying no to this person,
Right.
right? Because if it's debilitating for me to say no, because I usually ask, the audience if they were listening or if I see the hands, it's like, how many of you are so quick to respond? Like, and someone asks you something and you're like, oh yes, I can do that. I can totally do that. Well, of
Mhm.
course you can. The truth is you can do anything. You can do whatever you want. You can do anything you want. You say yes to everybody. The problem is, did you say yes too soon without pumping the brakes? And there's another great book called The Best Yes. But did you consider that there might be more to this?
Yeah.
You might want to jump and say yes. Could you pump the brakes and just pause before you do that and say, wait a minute, have I considered everything it takes to say yes? Because saying yes to this thing or person or project or whatever is probably taking away from somewhere else. And do I have the space to do that?
Yeah, no, that's so good. So I'm assuming these are things that you have had to implement in your life, especially with empowered moms and still teaching and being an amazing mom and an amazing wife yourself, which you guys, her girls are the cutest. They are so sweet. I remember when you were speaking at the event that we met at, they were just in the back in their cute little dresses and just like so proud of their mommy up on stage. It was so cute. I just remember seeing you give them a big, huge hug afterwards. And like my mama's heart melted, which is so beautiful. So, with all of the women who are listening, obviously in business, how do you handle that your best yes, especially with community and a lot of being really visible and having a lot of people that want your time and a lot of people that want your energy and a lot of different things like that. So now kind of getting into empowered moms, but also as a community builder, because I find myself there as well to where it's like, okay, there are certain things from a business side in a good way, like I'm working myself out of and bringing on teammates. And it also is the truth that lives in the tension of I'm not available for every single person in my community. And I want to, like my heart wants to, I love our community. And I'm one person. And so my heart is to like, hey, you guys are the it girls. Like we have other incredible leaders, like all this different stuff, and allow the access. So it just is, I'm finding that it's truth that lives in the tension of these concepts. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that and even what you're doing with empowered moms, because I know you are doing some amazing, amazing things just with the community that you have with
Yeah.
moms.
Well, I will say, I'll tell you about how I failed first, because I think that's the only truth. Is like you have to, there's a reason I teach this. And I think what's so funny to me is that obviously I believed in boundaries and I knew they were essential. They were literally essential. One of my first boundaries was with my mom. And it's a long, long, long story, which I won't go into that. But I remember she was like, how dare you? And I was like, I'm communicating a limit. Mom,
Right.
and I need you to respect this. And I promise our relationship will get better if you do, from my perspective. And
Yeah.
it did. It actually really did, but it started small, but it had to be direct and it had to be done. That was the hardest
You
boundary
had
I
to be
think I ever
willing
set.
to be misunderstood.
And you need to be willing to disappoint. Come on. She was completely disappointed. How dare you
Totally.
not talk to me on the phone about blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, Mom, it's giving me anxiety. It was about me. It's triggering me.
Right.
You're you. And that's when the acceptance came. So it's like learning that was probably one of the hardest ones I had ever done. Now, with moving forward, what was interesting is that I believed in it so much, but I was struggling with being good at it. Right. So then I get asked to start teaching it because I was like, boundaries. Yeah, no, everyone needs them. It's how we get out of burnout. But I was still in burnout. And I think it's so comical to me that one of my coaches back in the day would say, you teach what you need most sometimes.
Yeah.
And somebody said another quote, which was like, people that do can and people that don't teach, which is totally not true, but it was funny to me at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally me. I can't tell you how many lectures I had given on boundaries before it finally was like, and I'll never forget, my husband walked by one time and then he told me at dinner, he's like, do you hear yourself? Like what you're teaching those people? Like, why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, oh, like almost like it's for them, not me. And it was so painful for me to start setting my time boundaries. So that's kind of why I'm going to get into like with my business and all that, because it was almost as if like, oh, I had learned that before. It's good enough. No, it definitely wasn't. It was costing me time with my family and things like that. And so, I think the hardest part about being an entrepreneur and a mom is, again, I don't love the word balance, but is creating the intentional time.
Right.
Summer looks different for us than the rest of the school year. So for me, this summer, I had to decide, okay, well, there's 12 weeks of camp I can put my kids in or not. And then it's like a match of like daycares and childcares and some camps here and there. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm not going to put them in 12 weeks of camp, then I'm not going to be able to work as much. So where do we pull back on that? And I don't think my community even noticed that I pulled back. But that's the point, is that how do you make it run smoothly, right? So that, and maybe not, maybe it does. Maybe it's Empowered Moms taking a 3-month break. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to do it that way. But it's intentional creation of time, which you do own, which you do have, which anyone that complains I don't have enough time, just call me. We'll sit and chat about it because I'm with you on that some days, right? There are days where I want to put more time and energy into the business, and other days where it's like, well, this was being with my family day.
Yeah.
So, I think that's one of the hardest boundaries, I think, for business owners, and especially business owners who are moms, is when they say like the words, how do you do it all? I'm like, well, you don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
And it is like, my planner and I basically we hug each other all day long. Like I got to look at my planner all the time because I'm either like rearranging other things to fit. And also a piece of advice with that is, well, it's like the don't do what I did. Don't overschedule, right?
Yeah.
Don't overschedule yourself because then there's no room for maybe a beautiful creation or a collaboration that was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And if you start feeling overwhelmed with the schedule, then take a pause and start going back to it and saying, okay, well, today I can't change anything, but what about tomorrow or the next day? Right. And the crazy thing is, I feel like, whatever people believe in, God or the universe, like I believe in God. Like literally Monday, I was just like, how am I going to get to this appointment and then do that? And then I literally got a cancellation for an appointment. I was like, oh, well, I was really looking forward to that appointment, but clearly my prayer got answered because okay, now I don't have to think about it. So I try not to stress and worry about that and try not to be overbooked with things.
Yeah.
And I know that can be hard too. So there isn't like one answer for that, but it is being intentional with that. And if you need more help, how do you get creative of getting more help?
Yeah.
I started finding like mother's helpers in the neighborhood. So I work upstairs in my office. Why can't a 12-year-old, or I don't know what the babysitting ages are for everybody, but like they'll come play with my kids, right?
Okay.
So, there's ways where I think we can, when we're not so stressed and overwhelmed, and we can pull the onion back. I mean, I was scheduling a lot of play dates last summer. That was tricky because kids can get sick. So I was like, I need more other types of childcare. But there are ways. And when you can pull yourself back from that stress response, you might start seeing a different way. And again, communicating that limit, if you have a partner or a spouse, or even a parent, like another, maybe the grandma and grandpa, an aunt and uncle, is communicating, hey, would it ever be possible for this to happen or this to look like that? Because they might have just been waiting for you to ask them. But
Right.
so many of us have a hard time asking for help. At the same time, so many of us have a hard time receiving when it's offered because we fear that people think we can't handle it. And so when someone offers, like, hey, do you need some help with the kids? Oh, no, I'm totally fine. Yet I was just whining to my other friend that I'm not fine. Why
Right.
can't we just be honest and say, well, actually, yeah, do you want to take the kids tomorrow? And then maybe I'll take your kids next week.
Totally.
It's all the give and take. And it's such a beautiful synergy when people can just like let go and then receive and then ask and then accept. And then, there's so much beauty out there, but we get afraid to put ourselves out there too. And that can help with boundaries and with time management.
Yes, I love that so much. And I love how you're bringing up how even the summer looks a lot different. I know for me as a mom as well, mine looks a lot different as well. And so I think it's also important to say, okay, what does this season look like? And how am I adjusting my schedule? How am I adjusting my boundaries for this season and for what is available and what matters most? And I also love that it's like, yeah, we're not meant to do any of this stuff alone. We're not meant to do motherhood alone. We're not meant to do business alone, which is why I know you and I have both created businesses and companies founded on community, and why we love being in other communities and just really being plugged in, because we're not meant to do any of it alone. I get the same question. They're like, how do you do it all? And I'm like, I don't do it all. I have people that help me. I have multiple assistants. I have people that come help clean my house. I have people that make my websites and all this stuff. And because I don't want to do it all. I want to save my best yes for the things that matter most. And then like what you're saying, I love that. It's the, hey, I'll watch your kids if you watch mine. And for us, we do every once in a while kind of the babysitting exchange where we have a few couples and we're like, all right, we're going to watch your kiddos and then you're going to watch our kiddos next week for date night. And, grandmas and grandpas. And so it definitely takes a village. And so I love what you do is you literally help create not only like that village, but really empower moms into these concepts that they can dream beyond motherhood. So tell us a little bit about empowered moms as we kind of round out this conversation, which I know we could probably talk for like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about all this stuff because it's so good. It's so good. But tell us what you're
Love
doing
it.
with empowered moms.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, the company is like you kind of mentioned the bio. It's really where we talk about that dreams don't end at motherhood. And
Right.
the whole concept behind that was there are some women that I think feel that once they hit that motherhood checkbox because they've been dreaming it their whole lives, that they're done. Like that's it. The little girl in them doesn't dream anymore. And that's not true. And so that dream can look like anything to anybody. It could mean being a stay-at-home mom, and it could mean going back to work, and it could mean writing a book or starting a business or getting a hobby. That dream is up to you. You decide what that little kid is like, but I still want to do this. And I think what I love about this company is that we're showing our kids instead of just telling them, we're
Yeah.
showing them that like, hey, you can do these things as a mom. Right. So we have a lot of fun things. We have a free networking group every month over a virtual networking group. So that's just if you jump in my email list, we do also a free Facebook group. So our Facebook group is just come in, get to know some of the people. And then we have our membership tribe, which there's more information on our website on that. That's a little bit more, there's more in there. We have master classes, we have hot seat coaching, we have all like the fun stuff in there. And then I can't say my favorite because they're like all my favorite, but obviously mentoring and coaching is in there. But in October, we're hosting our second live event in Michigan. And it was just last year was such a dream come true to host this event. I had been dreaming it for 3 years. If you asked me to brain dump it and brainstorm it, it'd be the same every single, if I could write it all out. And one of my girlfriends said to me, so when's the date?
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? The date's when I'm ready. And she goes, no, when's the date? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, she's like, this was March of 2023. And I was like, well, I mean, the spring's too soon. She goes, there's 2 more months of spring. And I said, for what I was imagining, took longer than 2 months. She goes, okay. So sometime before the end of the year, she goes, wait, go pick that date. So last year I picked it in October, and I'm so glad I did, because it's the same with anything. That take that first scary step, make the deposit, put the date down. And so that's our second live events coming up this October, which is really, really exciting. And really to show moms, I really want the speakers, they know this, but I want them to share their story, because none of us happened overnight. None of us did it alone. And we all did it with literally taking the one step, and our one steps all look different. And I love the fact that these women are going to pour into our communities and show them that it's possible. And then also, like, we're there to hold your hand too. Like, we're not going to let you hang. Charity, you have communities. We came from communities. It's like, that's the best part, is to see the collaborations that happen outside our community meetings and our networking groups. Is like, oh, well, we met at Empowered Moms. I'm like, I hadn't even met this person, and they heard of our company. And it's just such a beautiful, that's what I want people to feel. And when they think of Empowered Moms, I want them to know that there's a community out there, and that we're here for you. And then we also know we're not for everybody too. Like, there's some moms that are like, are you guys just like all really unhappy with your lives? I'm like, that is actually not it. I've had someone ask me that, and I was like, I'm so glad you asked me that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked me that, because it isn't for everybody. And I love that people are bold enough to do that.
So good. I love it. Well, Emily, I know that women are going to want to learn more about you and even dive into your guys' community, which, if you're listening to this and you're a mom, do it for sure. Emily is a gem, a wealth of knowledge. So Emily, where can people find you, follow you, dive into your world, and learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I think Instagram's the best for right now. It's at Dr. Emily Jacobs. And then our website is empoweredmoms.co. I'm not missing the M. That's just how it is. Those are our two. I'd love to see anybody on our free virtual networking, which is once a month. If you jump in our email list, you can get in there, and please say hi too. Say hi. I heard you on Charity's podcast. Like, come and say hi. It's me. I don't have any robots yet, which I don't, not that that's offending anybody, but it really is me. I would say hi back. My mentor has one, but then she does follow up after that. So, because we talked about how essential it is to be real too,
Totally.
So it always kind of makes me laugh. I'm like, oh, hi the robot. And then she follows like, okay, it's just me. I just needed her to, say hi. So, but again, it's a way to automate and to help our backend systems, right? To pour into people. So please reach out and say hi. I would love to connect with any of you.
Awesome. So great. Well, we'll make sure to have everything in the show notes so that you guys can grab a spot in her events or dive more into her groups and all of that fun stuff. So Emily, thank you so much for being here. You carry just such a beautiful heart to see other moms, to see other women win, and to see them like live unapologetically in who they are and the dreams that they have on their heart. And you are not only doing that, but you are empowering other people to do the same. And the world needs more of what it is that you carry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope it brought some value and some fun into your business and life. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, and even share the episode with a fellow business bestie who you know will love it. It helps us continue to attract top-level guests and reach more and more women who are on their journey in business just like you. Remember that when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. Cheers to your success.